Shalom. All praises to Yahweh. Bashem Yahushua, Bashem Harakah Kadash. That ones to the apostles and elders of Great Millstone of all well, and Shalom to the brothers doing this work in sincerity and truth, pushing us back to the four corners, man. Bringing about the end of Esau's kingdom and hastening the return of our Lord Yahweh Shai, man. Got this article on thelocal.de. It says what supermarkets in German state of Hesse, probably, can now block entry to the unvaccinated. And yeah, food market in Frankfurt. So yeah, this is something that is becoming. Hey, it's the uptake is being increased, and this has become very very common. It's like California, New York, or parts of California, New York, in Scotland, in Wales, in parts of what's it called as well? Not Canada. Well, I think parts of Canada as well. Maybe not yet, but the hell was I thinking of? Australia. That's what I was thinking of. Australia, Italy, these different places. They've already started to implement these rules, where it's basically you got to comply with the C pass. The Maxine passport to gain entry. And, people say it's going to create that like two-tiered system. But that's really what it is. It's about separating those that are going to be complying and assimilating to the system. As Esau's putting, basically gradually, warming them up into it, getting them to, priming them to accept, things further down the line. Because it's like, started with, masks, social distancing, staying at home from work, not going out, and then I was like, okay, well, did that, and then it what afterwards they opened stuff up. Then they were like, yeah, you can kind of go back out, but you got to comply with certain things. Then they were just like, okay, the max is here, get your shots, and then you know, you got a certain time limit on which to get those before you're gonna start getting locked out of certain parts of society. And that's for it's starting. It's only in a few areas now. It's not gone completely global, but it's that's where it's going, because it's mainly for, well, supermarkets. I'm not sure how many of them are supermarkets. Most of them is like restaurants, gigs, bars, clubs, that kind of stuff. But let me read it. Supermarkets in Frankfurt and the surrounding region can now implement rules that only allow vaccinated and C-recovered people onto their premises. The new C Health Pass entry rules, announced by the Central State of Hesse, have upped the pressure on the unvaccinated by allowing all shops to implement the so-called 2G rule at their doors. The 2G rule to public places being given the option to allow entry only to the vaccinated or people who've recovered from C has so far been allowed in half of German states for certain public places like bars, restaurants, nightclubs, and cinemas. So yeah, that's what most places, just kind of like entertainment spots. So as the government in Hesse has said that it had taken the decision to go a step further and allow the shops to bar entry to the unvaccinated at the request of the sector. So I want to start locking off the shops. No guys are wilding. People are still they will have got their shots, but because they know as well, it's become completely obvious now that it's like people that get, even if you get your shots, you're still meant to be getting sick anyway. The natural antibodies are obviously superior. This is what we expect. This option will only be used on some days, and will only be used on some days, and the businesses which cater to every day needs will not make use of it. Well, that's what they're saying, but it's given the option. So really, you could have certain areas where it's like you go to, they'll be like, "Nah, have you got your pay? Have you got your proof? You got your app? Scan your app, or you can't get in." And there's certain areas where people are aggy like that they really get down. So the decision comes after a Frankfurt court ruled in favor of a barbecue utensil store, which had launched a legal objection to the fact that it could not implement 2G rules on its premises. The court said in its ruling earlier in October they had considerable legal reservations about the exclusion of sales outlets and similar established from the so-called 2G rule. 2G has proved controversial, with many people saying it excludes people who can't get vaccinated, and it has the potential to widen societal divisions over the pandemic response. That's the thing as well, is like these responses are just making that gap wider. And that's kind of been the focus of society for like the last like 5-6 years. Well, actually, even going further back, because it's even from the time of like after the financial crash, that's really where it highlighted. Because then it was like, oh, thingy the bankers. That's when the whole man we're talking about audit the Fed, thingy arrest the bankers or whatnot. All the guys that basically caused the financial crash. But that none of that shit materialized into anything. Them guys were laughing and continue doing what they're doing to this day. Because why? These those industries, they're dealing with the elites, man, and the elites being able to enjoy, pursue what they desire, and keep what do you call it, and for them to what's the word, not multiply, well, I guess multiply in a sense, to compound on that, on their influence, their wealth, their power, all these things, to basically get people, within, locked into their system, man. That's why. And it's from then, it's been known. It's like if you're on the bottom, these guys ain't giving a shit about you. You getting fucked over, you losing your house, you getting taken advantage of, you got all these debts on your head or whatever. It's peak. It's peak. You're all kinds of free. The society ain't gonna do shit for you. But for these elites, it's the complete opposite. They can, intentionally destroy something, but then the system's gonna support them, because why? It's about their interests. So Second Ezra 15. Yeah. 16. For there shall be sedition among men, and invading one another. They shall not regard their kings nor princes, and the course of their actions shall stand in their power. Yeah. They're going to be regarding their kings and princes. Thinking that those that are in elite positions, they're basically going to be like, yo, fuck these people. And they're just going to be going wild, going buck wild within society, doing whatever they desire, indulging in their desire. Because why? Because they're just going to be like, yo, you try playing the game, and then you realize, like, oh, these guys don't give a shit about you. Which is the real, it's the real. They really trying to utilize the system, and that's the thing, is some people can get they can get what they might be able to get a little something from it, but then what? In the long run, it's dead. Like it don't really hold that weight. It's funny. I was talking to a Jake, and it's like this guy. We told him about the word time ago, and it's like when we first told him, he was at a down point, so he kind of just clung to it. He was like, "Yeah, no, it's real." He was just like kind of cursing out the whole, like, because he works in like the business sector and whatnot. He was cursing it all out. And then he was just like, yeah, he was hearing what brothers were saying. But it's like a few years later, kind of bumped into him. I think he came by the camp. He passed by the camp. And it was like he'd got a new job. Then he was scoffing, and he was just like, he weren't trying to hear it, and he left. And it's funny, like now, I saw him again. First time I see it, last time I saw him was like what, 2018, late 2018. Yeah, it would have been late 2018. I saw him, and then he was kind of in the same kind of zone, because I think he came by the camp. I have a bit before then, and then yeah, afterwards saw him, and then he was he was in that same Pride of Life spirit, and it's like now I saw him like just today still the spirit, and I was just like I was chatting to him, and he was just kind of like yeah, he's like saying like yeah, these people don't really care about you, all this, it's like they're just gonna work you to the bone, like you think like any kind of like you realized what man was saying. That's the thing is you heard these things before, but then it's like oh now that you've gone out and you've kind of witnessed it yourself to a greater extent, now you realize like oh, okay, this is what it is. Like these guys, this like they don't really care about me. And he's saying like yes, he's saying especially saying especially if you're black in a workplace, all these guys in his workplace are doing all forms of racism. I was like yeah, that's right. These guys don't care. In Esau's world, Jake's a proverb and a byword, man. They ain't like it. They don't like us out here, man. They're trying to like excel and gain from Esau's world like he does ain't gonna work out in your favor, because to them you are still just a nigger, man. Says what a man should desire to go into a city and shall not be able. Yeah, restrictions, man. Enforced restrictions. That's how it's gonna get. Just as you had multiple times where you had troops, boots on the ground. You had access to certain places being trafficked off. These things are gonna become the norm. That's just gonna become accepted. And as you can see with this whole C-19 situation, with this lockdown, with this shots, with these C passports, these things can be instated very easily. It's like in the US they're talking about interstate travel, well, which is just like driving across state lines and being like, oh, do you need to have to? Are we gonna have to move to having to have proof and whatnot? Things are close. For because of their pride, the city shall be destroyed. Cities shall be troubled, their houses shall be destroyed, and the men shall be afraid. Well, that's how it's gonna go down. 2 Esdras 15 is a heavy scripture, man. Goes into how everything's gonna go topsy turvy. Because right now, and that's the thing, is really people out here ain't feeling that huge amount of love for each other, man. People ain't really down that whole kind of sense of community and society. This is all BS. People that are on the bottom are trying to claw their way into the middle. People in the middle are trying to sustain themselves and go to higher stratas. People at the top are about keeping everyone else on their level, man, playing their role. That's the thing, is Esau dangles these hopes and dreams in front of people to make them like rats on the wheel chasing cheese. The rat race. Just like that guy I was talking to, just like he found out. The man realized it was a hamster on the wheel. He'd just been getting utilized as a resource by Esau. Same thing. He's just still a slave. It's like Neo finds out. But yeah, I'll leave it there. Shalom. Yabashim Shabashim Kakadash Pakata. Shalom.